So, good
Yes, sir.
morning, dear participating teachers. Friends, many teachers, or I will say all of us, have been using the term teaching and instruction interchangeably. But there is a difference between teaching and instruction. You see, instruction can be facilitated by a textbook. That is, if you are reading out a text from a textbook, you can learn something. You can also learn something when you watch a video. But in case while watching video or while reading out a text from the reading book, textbook, if you have any query, you cannot seek further information, clarification from the material. Whereas teaching involves face to face interaction between the teacher and the students, and whenever the students have any doubt, they can ask for supplementation, further information, explanation. So, this is the difference between teaching and instruction. So, instruction is a broad term, and teaching is one aspect of that instruction. Now, friends, in the past, plans for teaching and instruction have been largely made by intuition. Okay, today I'll take up to this much. No, this much is not sufficient. Let me take this also. So that a plan has been largely made by intuition and have often been based upon ambiguous purposes. Ambiguous purposes. Before 5 to 6 years before, if you ask some teacher, what is the purpose of your today's lecture, he says, my purpose is to enable my students know about forces, or my purpose is to enable my students understand this thing. Now there is a shift from teacher center to student center. Now we have to see what the student will be able to do at the end of a unit of instruction. So earlier the purposes were ambiguous, and likewise the judgment was very much subjective, isn't it? We used to ask question like, what do you know, what do you understand? Okay. Now, so suppose I ask you one question, what are Newton's laws of motion? Now this kind of question would be interpreted differently by different students. One student thinks of stating all the three laws, another student thinks, okay, I'll explain each of the three laws with one example each. Another student tries to give two examples for each of the three laws while explaining the three laws. So when it comes to scoring of the students, you see answer, so answer sheet will get different marks because the judgment was subjective. In the past, the emphasis has been with the method of teaching rather than learning by student. Now you see, it has become evident that the instructional process is very complex, even more so than the formally, you see, realized. You see, the instructional process is composed of many interrelated parts and functions that must operate in a coherent manner in order to achieve success. By manipulating or say controlling one or only a few of these parts or functions, the teacher will not be able to achieve. So by controlling or by, you see, manipulating only a few parts, the teacher will not be able to achieve hope for success. That is the key outcome of education. And what is the key outcome of education? That is learning by the students. Now you see that in order to intelligently, because the I said that instruction process is very complex, it is composed of many interrelated parts. So in order to intelligently relate all elements of the instructional process, in building a successful program, we need to employ an approach which is being widely used in business, industry, even military, space exploration. That approach is receiving an increased attention. This method or approach involves the development of an overall plan incorporating the interrelated and interdependent components in a sequential manner. And this is called as systems approach. So systems approach to instruction means the systematic design of instruction, which is based upon the knowledge of learning process, communication theory, taking into consideration many factors, many variables of the particular situation so that successful learning will result. So, in this particular session, we will focus on systematic approach to instructional design. So, systematic approach to instruction, planning largely by intuition and subjective judgment, and focus has been on teaching method rather than learning by student. And as I said, that it is very complex process and there are number of variables, and these variable includes individual differences amongst learners. You know that there are different types of students sitting in the classroom. Some are slow learners, some are fast learners, some are very you say above average students, some are average. Some students learn best when something is shown to them. Some students learn best when they are involved, when they are participating in the teaching learning process. So variety. So as a teacher, you need to consider the needs of different individuals while providing, you see, learning experiences to the students. And there are variety of subjects, learning tasks. Each subject has its own set of learning outcomes. Some subjects involve learning at the cognitive domain only. Some subjects involve, you see, students' ability to do something. That is, some subjects uh, include the skills, and above all, the the important component of attitude needs to be incorporated, whether you are teaching a theory subject or you are imparting instruction in the laboratory or workshop. Likewise, there are variety of instruction methods. Lecture method is the most commonly used method, but many times we focus on one way communication lecture method, where the teacher goes on explaining without, you see, involving the student participation. So in a one way lecture, students are simply hearing, I would say. They are not listening to the teacher. If the students have some, they have got some doubt, they cannot ask any question. Or if they ask question, teacher say, okay, I'll take it at a later stage. So one way, students sit as passive listeners. There are there is another, that is two-way lecture. Then we have got demonstration method, lecture come demonstration. Then we have small group instructional methods like seminar method, panel discussion, group discussion, tutorials, role play. And there are some methods which provide individualized instruction. Individualized instruction means that the student is active, he studies the material himself or herself, and is provided with immediate knowledge of result. Say self-learning module, computer assisted instruction. Likewise, there are variety of instructional media. projected instruction media, non-projected instruction media, and many a times teachers do not bring any media in the classroom. And friends, let me tell you, many studies have been carried out on the effectiveness of integrating media on the performance of the students. So all these studies have concluded that if media is integrated while teaching, then the students perform better. Likewise, student evaluation. Student evaluation, some many a times the teacher doesn't evaluate the student prerequisites before the start of the lecture, during the lecture, after the lecture, and if at all the teacher evaluates student performance, that is not providing objective evaluation. More or less, it is subjective. And teachers, you see, mainly employ the essay type of questions. So there are different techniques of assessment, and if you study all these techniques, you will find that each technique of assessment has its own advantages and limitations. So it will be incorrect to employ only a single method of evaluation for measuring students' varied learning abilities. So these are some of the factors. So you cannot control any one factor in isolation. So you have to employ system approach because it is holistic approach. System approach relates all the elements of instructional process, and you see accounts for the situational factors. So let us first of all have a look at what we mean by a system before we employ system approach to instruction. Now you see, system refers to a group of things or parts working together in a regular fashion. In an educational technology context, a system is any collection of interrelated parts that together constitute a larger whole. These parts or component parts or elements of the system are intimately linked with one another, either directly or indirectly, and any change in one or more elements may affect the overall performance of the system either beneficially or adversely. Let us look at body as a system. We have many subsystems like digestive system, circulatory system, nervous system, and many more. All these subsystems are functioning independently, and they are also functioning in relation to each other. So if there is any problem with any of the subsystem, it is going to affect the body as a system either beneficially or adversely. So a system refers to a set of elements arranged in an orderly manner to accomplish an objective. The purpose is to accomplish an objective. For example, we have computer system where we have got input, process, output devices, operating systems, packages, DBMS, personal. The purpose of computer as a system is to process data and provide information. And each one has a special function. Say the mouse, the keyboard, the the process or the printer output, they have got, so it means it has got various parts and their functions are interconnected to each other in specific ways. Now, if you look at business organization as a system, so what are the elements? People, plant, machinery, product, services, communication, uh, transport, material, etc. Now, the objective of business as a system is to produce goods and services, for example, to achieve the business objectives of service, turnover, profits, and so on. Now, if you look at the technical institution as a system, we have students as inputs, the teacher, the information resources, and the output. And the purpose of technical education system is to develop among students knowledge, skills, and attitude. Now, you see, in students with initial behavior, they join the polytechnic or engineering college with some knowledge, skills, and attitude. And of course, they join the institution with some entrance test. Okay. Then we have got teachers, human resources, faculty, supporting staff, administrative staff. We have other resources like space, equipment, consumable. We have information document, instruction material, energy resources, electricity, mechanical resources, water, etc. Financial resources like planned and non-planned. So these are the components of the input to the institute as a system. Then the process of say 3-year duration or 4-year duration. Now the students are leaving the organization with changed set of knowledge, skills, and attitude, which is brought about as a result of providing varied experiences, varied learning experiences to the student during 4 years or 3 years. Now, some students go to the employment sector. Some students also go for the higher studies. Now, there is a control mechanism. We get some, you see, feedback from the employment sector, and that feedback is fed back to the input. We have to reflect back why the students are lacking particular skills. Is something wrong with the curriculum? Is something wrong with the teaching learning process? Is something wrong with the inadequate equipments or facility? So there is a regulatory group. So the system. Now you see here you will note that system is not a randomly arranged set. It is arranged with some logic, governed by rules, regulations, principles, policies, and such an arrangement is also influenced by the objective this system desires to achieve. अभी मैंने एग्जाम्पल दिया था that the computer as a system, okay, input, process, output. The purpose is to process data and provide information. For this purpose, we need these are the components. Now, if the computer system is designed to achieve the objectives of design, engineering, and drawing processes, then the elements will be graphic workstation, graphic processor, languages suitable for engineering and drawing application, plotters for drawing. It means the components are now different if the objective is different. So a clear statement of objective of the system brings a precision, brings an order, into the selection of the elements and their arrangements in the system. And any disorder would create a disturbance in the system affecting the accomplishment of an objective. So, system contains input, process, and output. These are the parts of a system, and a system may have single input, single output, or single input and multiple outputs, or may have several input, several outputs. So, the choice of the input and the processing methodology is governed by the objective which is set for the system. So, as I said, all systems operate in an environment. You see the environment. The environment may influence the system in its design and performance. So, when a system is designed to achieve certain objectives, it automatically sets the boundaries for itself. So, the understanding of boundaries of system is very essential to bring a clarity in explaining the system components and their arrangements. And if an additional objective is to be introduced in the system, then it may not be possible, as the new system may fall outside the boundaries or the scope of the system. Example, मैं कंप्यूटर सिस्टम को लेता हूँ. Say for example, a computer system designed for commercial data processing cannot achieve the objective of design drafting as a system elements, and its boundaries do not permit it. So we need to employ an overall plan incorporating interrelated components and interrelated part, and this is very essential, or you can say, for designing an instructional system. So system approach comprising elements which interact for a useful purpose. Now system approach is applicable at various levels: at program level, at subject level, at the topic level. It can be first applied to individual topics, then to units and subjects, and finally to the complete program, initially involving one or few teachers. And when the instructional designer, that is the teacher, they have become fully familiar with the design plan, it may be then applied to the efforts of the entire technical system at the state level. Now coming to the concept of instructional, design process. If I ask you what is instruction, by instruction we mean a goal directed teaching process which is more or less pre-planned. Now, whether the goal has been established by the student or by the external agent, say a teacher or syllabus, is immaterial. What is important is that a predetermined goal has been identified. So, important thing is we begin with the goal. If the goal is clear, we choose the relevant and appropriate, adequate other components of the system. Now, the goal, whether the routes to the goal, whether the routes to the goal are various or unique, whether the routes are prescribed by the teacher or chosen by the student is immaterial, I would say. What is important is that pre-planning has taken place to establish and test out viable routes. So it is therefore the presence of precise goals, or I would say objectives, and the presence of careful pre planning and testing out that shall be taken as the important characteristics of our use of the term instructional system. So, instructional system is a three-phase formula. Firstly, what must be learned? That is the objectives. Now, from students' point of view, the learning outcomes. And what is a learning outcome? It is a sentence or statement which describes what the learner will be able to do at the end of a unit of instruction. This is one. The second is what procedure, what resources will work best for achieving learning outcome. That is, you need to select instructional method, instruction media, or you need to develop instructional media, other resources in order to successfully achieve the objectives. And thirdly, how to know that learning outcomes have been achieved, evaluation. So, not measurement, evaluation, which contains the quantitative aspect and the qualitative aspects of the students, you can say, achievement, performance. And the evaluation must be valid, it must provide reliable results. So, instructional design process at the program level, let us see what are the activities a teacher or a designer of instruction has to carry out. So, firstly, it is the analysis of needs. So, there are some activities which are to be carried out at the program level, some activities are to be performed at the lesson level, and some at the topic level. So, the design of instruction, you see, results from some perceived need in terms of the curricula. The perceived need usually falls into a few components. Firstly, say a need to conduct instruction more effectively and efficiently for some course which is already a part of the curriculum, or a need to revitalize both the content and the methodology for existing course, or there is a need to develop a new course at all. So that is why you need to carry out the need analysis. So in the context of vastly changing technology being the characteristics of modern industrial society, instruction imparted in technical education system needs to be modified. For example, as you have noticed some gap between what is and what should be. So it is this gap or discrepancy between what is and what is needed generates the need for a new instructional system, or at least a redesigned system. Sometimes there is a need to update the system in content to improve its effectiveness, or to change methods to reach, say, greater number of learners. So after the need analysis, the next step is to describe the major goals and objectives for the instructional system. And then the needs and goals will be prioritized. That is, which needs, which goals should be addressed to immediately, and which ones can be taken up thereafter. This is the first activity which requires at the program level. Okay, that the at the institution level, you have to start a new course, you have to make certain changes in the content or methodology. This can be carried out at the lesson level also, because you also carry out some need analysis. Which topic should I take first? Now, the second step, the second activity, not a step, activity, after the need analysis, the designer of the instruction specifies what the present state of system is in terms of the need analysis. What the present state of system is. Each component you see is reviewed in terms of available resources and constraints. And the designer attempts to answer questions like, how would students learn to do things that goals describe? From whom would they learn? Where would they find resources, materials, or help needed by them? What would be required to accomplish goals? Is a compromise required to made somewhere? If yes, what would it cost? What are the alternate delivery system and like? So there are usually several viable strategies for attaining a major goal in order to fulfill a need. Resources, types, quantity. And then after this, the next task is to formulate sequentially the major goals to be achieved in each year of curriculum. Subject or curriculum sequences are typically represented in scope. So the topics you need to suggest for each semester. Goals are then to be translated into specific objective. So program outcomes, then you write course outcomes, and finally the learning outcomes. So you prepare the semester or annual progress on course outcome and learning outcome, space, material, equipment required, prepare the study and evaluation scheme. So these are carried out at the program level. Now, the next, we are moving towards the activities required at the subject level. The first three activities at the program level, now at the subject level, determining the subject structure and sequence. You pick up one subject, you need to write the general objective and the learning outcome. So each subject has a set of target objectives. You now these days you will find that the syllabi of a particular subject begins with a set of objectives. That is what the student will be able to do after the completion of a complete subject. Then each subject has got different units, and each unit has number of topics. So we go to learning outcomes. So every target objective consists of several enabling objectives, which we call learning outcomes, which are smaller in scope, I would say, which are smaller in scope. For example, understand Ohm's law. Now, the learning outcomes for this is state the define current, state as a unit of current, name the device which measure current, likewise for voltage, likewise for resistance, draw the circuit diagram for verification of Ohm's law, verify Ohm's law, draw a graph between V and I, list situation where Ohm's law can be applicable. So several learning outcomes which are smaller in scope. So the target objectives are grouped into units because each subject has got number of units and each unit has one broad objective. So the sequence of instruction is determined first for the units and then for the learning outcomes. Units, chapters, topic, subtopic, data, information, and sequence. So sequence is determined first for the units and then for the learning outcome. Next is analysis of subject objectives. So analysis of subject objectives consists of three kinds of analysis. Firstly, it is the information processing analysis, preparing a flow chart. The purpose is to reveal the mental operations which make possible the observed performance of the students, indicating that they have mastered the objective. The task classification. The classification is done into cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domain as per Bloom's taxonomy, or into say intellectual skills, verbal information, motor skills, attitude as given by Gagne. So you can go for anyone, but these days we are following the Bloom's taxonomy. And thirdly, learning task analysis, that is you will see the hierarchy. So it is undertaken to reveal the enabling objective, that is the learning outcome for which decision concerning teaching sequence is required to be made. Now let us have a look at firstly the task analysis. Now what is task analysis? Task analysis is a process of breaking down the complexity of an activity into easier steps. These steps are then presented to students one by one in a sequence. So it involves both analysis, that is first of all you are breaking down, and then from the lower most component you start developing your lecture, that is you are synthesizing. I'll give you one example. First of all, say task can be a topic, say solving simultaneous equation, student motivation, any topic from theory subject. Task could be a job from the laboratory or from the workshop. You see studies, say setting up a lathe. And skill is a small act which has no structure. It is one component. Skill has different acts under the job. Now say for example you want to you have taken one topic. Now for this topic you have divided that topic into say 5. That is for this topic first of all you have to teach this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Now this is the, for teaching this you need to teach first of all this one, this one. For teaching this part you need to teach these 5 units. So this is the second level of analysis. Then going to the third level of analysis, and you go on breaking down till the task becomes self-sufficient, that is no more information is required. Now you notice that the topic was less detailed at the top and it is too much detailed at the bottom. So you start developing your lecture first of all from this part, this part. Now this you have reached here. Likewise you can go for this classification, and so on. Let me take one example. Say, job of an engine mechanic. This is a job. Uh, Let us divide the job of an engine mechanic into its various duties: tuning the carburetor, adjusting the tappets, adjusting spark plug gap, changing engine oil, clean, cleaning the spark plug. Now, each of these five duties can be performed by carrying out various small acts. Tuning the carburetor, for this, what you are required to do. Adjusting the taper, what you are required to do. Now let us focus on one: changing engine oil. For this, the tasks required are: firstly, jacking up the car. This is a must. Then you need to place oil container under the sump, remove the sump plug, and then allow the oil to drain away. Now, these can be further broken down. For example, jacking up the car. The task elements include: you need to acquire appropriate jack, right kind of jack. You have to position the jack. You cannot keep the jack anywhere. And then you have to manipulate the jack to up to what up to a certain height, so that the mechanic can go in, uh, down the you see vehicle and open the keep the container under the sump, can remove the plug, and so on. So this is task analysis. This will help you to include all the components which are essential for developing a lecture. Now we move to the lesson level. First of all, as a teacher, you need to specify the learning outcomes. And learning outcomes help the teacher define what must be learned. That is the content. Secondly, these provide guidance to the teacher as to what method, what media should be employed to reach the desired learning level. And thirdly, learning outcomes are of considerable assistance in planning assessment procedure. That is, what to teach, and how to evaluate. These are determined by specifying learning outcome. So defining performance objective or learning outcome makes it essential to convey the purpose of instruction. Okay. So for the performance needs to be observable and measurable. For example, you need to write objective like define force. That is, after the topic is over, my student will be able to define force. And now you can measure this outcome by asking the question, define force. So the performance and the objective or the evaluation question must be in correspondence with each other. Performance has to be observable. Either he will write the definition of force on the paper, or he can orally speak out. But if the question is, what do you know about force? And the learning outcome is define force. So this particular question, that is, what do you know about force, will be measuring something different. Our objective is different. So you will not get the reliable result. You will not get the valid result. Now there are three domains of cognitive domain. Uh, Cognitive domain refers to intellectual outcomes. which include knowledge, understanding, that is remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. These are the 6 levels. And this is measured by paper and pencil test. Affective domain is concerned with our attitudes, feelings, interests, values, emotions. These cannot be measured by paper pencil test. These are measured through observation. So there are 5 levels: receiving, responding, valuing, organization, characterization. And then the third domain is referring to hand and head coordination, that is skills, psychomotor domain, hand and head coordination. And it has got 5 levels: imitation, manipulation, precision, articulation, and naturalization. Now, we are limiting today's session to cognitive domain only. Remembering, that is recalling information. When he is able to name, I say, name one sulfide ore of copper, define force, state SI unit of force. So these are not to be understood, these are simply to be remembered. That is why recall, when the student is able to recall, restate, remember the learned information. So these are the verbs which can be used to write learning outcomes at the remembering stage. Then comes understanding. When the student is able to explain the ideas or concept, when he is able to grasp the meaning of the material by interpreting or translating. I say the normal temperature of human body is 98.6 degree Fahrenheit. Convert it into degree Celsius. Now, student can convert into degree Celsius only if he has understood the relationship between degree Fahrenheit and degree Celsius. So the verbs which are included in this level include classify, describe, explain, define, indicate, and so on. Then comes ability to use learned information in another familiar situation, that is applying. Okay. So adapt, apply, calculate, change, compute, demonstrate, draw, exhibit, show. These are some of the behavioral terms. Then comes analyzing, which involves critical thinking. Analysis means breaking something into its constituent parts and looking for various relationship. Now you see, uh, you are watching me through this laptop or through this LCD projector in your remote center. If I ask you, please analyze this LCD projector, I mean that you can dismantle it. Now, what you are looking into while you are dismantling, you are looking that there are different parts and you know their functions also, because the remembering, understanding, and applying has been carried out. And the most important thing which you are going to see is the relationships, how one component is related to another component. Because if you do not understand the relationships, you will not be able to assemble this LCD project again, or you will not be able to create something new, because you have understood the relationship. Now you can go for you see devising something new. So evaluating, again, it involves critical thinking, but at this stage the student is able to justify a decision or course of action. What is the worth of this thing? In which situation it can be used? We ask we give a situation, we ask, please select the tool to solve this problem and give your reason in the support of your selection of that particular tool. Now, if you are evaluating the worth of something, you will be able to reach at the highest level, creating. Critical thinking, that is generating new things, new products, or ways of view things. So these are some of the behavioral terms which can be employed for measuring students behavior at this level. Now, another activity which is required at the lesson level is preparing a lecture plan. A lesson plan is basically a blueprint. We all of us are required to prepare a lesson plan. You see, lesson plan is different from your lecture notes. Your lecture notes are not lesson plan. Lesson plan is a teaching outline of important points of a lesson arranged in the order in which they are to be presented. I say it is a teaching outline of important points of a lesson arranged in the order in which they are to be presented. It may include learning outcomes to be achieved, points, yani components to be included, reference to some instructional media to be used, reference to some textbook, questions, assignment, etc. So the it is called as the blueprint of time framed teacher and learner activities, including material media for achieving stated objectives. Now, in order to see that the objectives are achieved, you need to include the questions also. And now these days, many teachers are following Google form for preparing multiple choice questions. That is, at the end of a lecture, they give say 10 to 20 MCQs through Google form, and you will get the result very quickly, and you know that your topic has been understood by your students. So lesson plan covers events of instruction in the introduction stage, the developmental stage, and recapitulation stage. So lesson plan, you see, keeps the teacher on the track. If you have prepared a lesson plan, it provides you confidence because you know in advance what to do and what not to do. While preparing a lecture plan, you can anticipate the likely question that the student may ask from you. That is why you are more confident. You know at what stage some media is to be used. Okay, so you are very much confident. As I said that during a lecture delivery, you need to ensure that you are, you see, uh, following number of events, gaining attention. I think it is it should be throughout your lecture. Gaining attention means you are providing information, you are making them alert to the reception of the stimulus. So there are various steps to gain the attention of your student. Firstly, don't stand stationary at lecture stand. Bring purposeful movements. Slowly go to left side, stop there for few seconds and address the left hand side section of your class. Slowly move to the right side. Now stand there for some time. You can go in between. So you can make the students alert when you go closer to them. Use of gestures, change of voice. When you say these are due to laws of inertia, okay, so you are gaining the attention by speaking out the important component very loudly. So change the tone, change the pitch of your voice to alert your student. Another tip is change in interactional pattern. You are giving some information, you may ask one question, you can invite question. Now the students are participating. Oral visual switching. Oral involves sense of hearing, visual involves sense of sight. You have spoken few words, now go to board and write the important line, or you can show the PPT. So sense of sight and sense of hearing both are involved. And then maintain an eye contact with each and every student sitting in the classroom. So gaining attention should be throughout the lecture. Now, after you have announced the topic, you tell them or you inform them about the learning outcomes. Gaining attention can be through interesting introduction of your lecture also. Let me introduce my lecture. I give you one example. Now I keep an object on the table and ask one student, what is the position of this object? Is it at rest or is it moving? Because yesterday I have told them the concept of rest, motion and inertia, motion and force. Definitely he will say that it is at rest. Another question, what is the position of this fan? Sir, it is in motion. Good. Now this object is at rest. How we can put into motion? The student will say, sir, by pushing or by pulling, that is by applying some force, it can be put into motion. Wonderful. You are sitting in a moving bus, let us suppose, and the driver suddenly applies brakes. What happens? Because they have already observed, sir, we go forward. And what happens when the driver suddenly starts the bus? So we go backward. Why are these due to? Now the students are now quite curious to know why. So they are giving their 100% attention. Then you say that these are due to laws of inertia. So today in this session, we will learn laws of inertia. Then you go to board and write the topic laws of inertia. And on the left hand side, you write, after this topic is over, you will be able to explain inertia of rest, inertia of motion, inertia of direction. क्योंकि कई बार तो टीचर टॉपिक अनाउंस ही नहीं करता, and the objectives are also not communicated to the students. So please inform your students about objectives of instruction, and this should be at two times. Firstly, once you are starting your lecture, and secondly, before leaving the lecture, that is when you are summarizing today's lecture, then say, so tomorrow we will take up this topic, and where you will be able to describe, define, explain, so and so things. That is, you are giving an overview of tomorrow's lecture also. So this is two times. Then ensuring prerequisites of learners at the beginning of a lecture, because you see, I have assumed for a topic on inertia that my students might be knowing about concept of rest, concept of motion, and concept of force. So I have asked. Now this can be during the lecture also. For example, say you are making out some derivation wherein you are required to put the value of f is equal to m into a. Now here you can ask one question. In the last semester, we have understood the relationship between force and acceleration. Can you recall what is the relationship between force and acceleration? He will say, sir, f is equal to m into a. Now here you put the value of f as m into a. So prerequisites ensure. Presenting stimulus material, provide varied experiences. Okay. Then providing learning guidance. Say you have given them some exercise. Now there is a hint, there is a clue. You are giving them clue. Now asking him to show. Yes, show me this diagram. I think this diagram has some, you see, uh, uh, slant lines. So providing informative feedback. And then assessing performance at the end of a lecture, maybe through Google form. And finally, the last event is enhancing retention and transfer. Now, this is possible if you are providing them homework. So, during homework, the students will be able to transfer whatever they have learned in the class in a situation to solve the problem. And if they are successful in transferring, this will enable them to retain the knowledge for a longer period of time. So these are 9 events of instruction which are required to be designed during a lecture. Now another uh, activity which is required at the lesson level is to make decisions about the instructional material or media needed. Material, you see, may refer to print medium or non-print medium for conveying instructional stimuli content. Now, development and selection of material or media should take into account few factors like size of class, nature of student, mode of imparting instruction, budgetary provision, practical factors. So all these need to be taken into consideration while developing or while selecting media. Then assessing student performance. What do I mean by assessment? By assessment, I mean those activities that are designed to measure student achievement brought about as a result of an instructional program. And assessment of student performance is necessary for purposes of students' placement in flexible diagnosis of their difficulties, checking of their progress, reporting progress to the administration, students even, and evaluating instruction. So performance objective, that is learning outcome, is the keystone in planning assessment or assessment of performance. That is, performance required during assessment must be the same performance as was described in the learning outcome. Now, purpose of evaluation is to provide information to a student to the extent to which a student has achieved mastery over a set of tasks. It provides information for comparing the performance of one student against the performance of another student. It provides information to teacher regarding the appropriateness of the teaching method which he has chosen. The teacher can take instruction decisions related to planning, grouping, learning difficulties once you get the information through evaluation. And we conduct before the lecture starts, that is placement evaluation. I have given one example of inertia, whether the student possesses the knowledge or skill needed to begin with planned instruction. So pre-test, aptitude test, or other test. Then summative evaluation, formative evaluation during a lecture. That is, you are monitoring the learning progress. Now, you have broken down your topic into 3 or 4 components. After delivering the first part of your lecture, you ask one or two questions. If you are not getting satisfactory response from your students, it means you are required to make changes in your subsequent presentation. You need to give more example, or you need to integrate media. You have to take some decision. Then comes summative evaluation, that is before leaving the classroom, or you can say, if we say semester, then end semester examination or end term examination. And then another is the diagnostic evaluation, that is to diagnose the recurring learning difficulties which the students are encountering, which are not resolved during lecture. Okay, so for this, you have some specially prepared diagnostic test or observational techniques. And the two important characteristics are the validity. A test is valid if it measures what it is supposed to measure. For example, supposed to means what is the learning outcome? I say learning outcome is, after the topic is over, my students will be able to define force. Then the corresponding question should be define force, and not what is force, what do you mean by force, or what do you know about force, because all these three things are measuring something different. So as a teacher, you need to consider these factors in order to enhance the validity of your results. There should not be any ambiguity in these statements. If you want him to draw the sketch also, you write, explain with a neat sketch the working principle of carburetor of an IC engine. Describe the advantages of lubricants. How many advantages? 6, 8 of a particular category of lubricant. It is not clear to the student. You have to specify. Give complete instruction. Okay. And you have to arrange items ranging from simple to difficult. Prepare item uh, by following guidelines of writing different types of test item. Don't ask question like write a short note on semiconductor, discuss semiconductors. We begin many times the question like discuss. Write a short note on what are, I say, what are principles, what are laws of force, Newton's laws of motion. So these are ambiguous questions. Then reliability, consistency of results from one measurement to another. That is, if one answer sheet is marked by more than one teacher, then the answer sheet must carry almost similar score. Or if the question paper is given to the student at 9 o'clock in the morning and the same question paper is given at 2 o'clock, there should be consistency in the results. You will not get, as far as essay type questions are concerned, short answer type item or multiple choice item questions, they provide reliable results. So these are the factors which affect the reliability. So you need to increase the length of question paper. That is, instead of giving long answer question, say attempt any 5 out of 8, you can ask him to attempt at least 20 questions of few marks, slightly any short answer, slightly lengthy question, and so on. Difficulty of the test item should pertain to should follow the normal probability curve. Say 20% item can be of very difficult in nature. 20% item can be of very small, simple in nature, and rest of the 60% item can pertain to average difficulty level. And objectivity of scoring, that is, you break down the question into three or four parts and indicate the marks along with the question. Now, there are few activities which are required at the program level again. Firstly, teacher preparation. You are introducing a new system, so teacher preparation is absolutely necessary. I think teacher training, you are attending right now a teacher training program, so it should be an ongoing activity, because there is a need for giving the teachers special training in the use of new system. Training program need to be organized for updating or for upgrading the teachers in subject matter, industrial practices, even pedagogy, education technology, planning, education planning and management, etc. And these training programs should be need based and must be linked with the career growth opportunities. That is, the teachers need to be suitably deployed after undergoing training. Then, formative evaluation at the program level. So, monitoring the learning progress during instruction. So, this formative evaluation provides more, you see, more components for making certain improvement. Then another is field testing. Now the program is ready, but before installing, you can install in one or two pilot institutions for revealing more areas of improvement. Okay. Then summative evaluation, that is, you need to study the effectiveness of system of instruction as a whole. You can follow techniques for norm reference testing and criterion reference testing. And finally, installation and diffusion. That is, after an acceptable degree or acceptable merit has been reflected by one or more summative evaluation, now the new system, whether a modified system, says you have made certain curriculum changes, it is ready for widespread adoption, or you can say regular use. So, to conclude, for effective instructional design, a holistic approach is adopted from a systems point of view, where the components of the system are interdependent and interrelated. Already we have learned. And change in any one component cannot be done in isolation. Why? Because the change made can affect the system either adversely or favorably. मैंने आपको पहले बताया था. So development of instruction design is a systematic process comprising a series of activities ranging from need analysis to installation and diffusion, ensuring maximum success in implementing such instruction in the actual classroom situation. So there are various activities which are carried out at the program level, subject level. So at the program level, we begin with analysis of needs, then analysis of resources, determination of scope. Then at the lesson level, we determine the subject structure, analysis of subject objectives, specifying performance objective, preparing lesson plan, developing instructional media, assessing student performance. And then more activities at the program level, that is teacher preparation, formative evaluation, then field testing, summative evaluation, and instructional installation and diffusion. So I now must stop here.